Hey again, really, really good to be with you today. And I just want to, before we jump into this week 2 deal, just kind of celebrate a couple things with you. Kind of approaching today and knowing we were baptizing some students, which I absolutely love. It just kind of got me going down very current, reflective lane, just a little bit about some of the cool things that Jesus is doing, in large part because people like you are willing to participate in what Jesus is doing. So just for example, it's not always easy things. It's sometimes some of the most challenging things. Just a couple of days ago on Friday, we hosted a funeral here for a young gal named Kendra who lost her life when she was 27 years old and has left a couple very, very young kids behind. And we hosted her funeral, a few hundred people here, and more than that, counting visitations and things. And here's the deal. A lot of you didn't know Kendra, didn't know who she was, hadn't met her. Some of you had served her kids and Journey Kids and things like that. And yet here's the thing that was just really moving to me is that so many of you caught an email or saw something and were willing to just jump in and help. You were willing to bring food. You were willing to come work on a Thursday night to get a building ready. You were willing to stay late on a Saturday night to get a building back. Some of you just started calling with questions and wonders about how we can help. And I don't know who this is, but can I help and everything else? And I just got to tell you, that was remarkably meaningful. It meant a ton. I've had the real privilege of just kind of sharing some life with Kendra and her family for the last decade or so, and to get notes yesterday from people in her family and friends of hers that you probably never would have met, and them really celebrating you. Honestly, celebrating you and your willingness to love people that you don't know and haven't met and enter into their grief. I just want to thanks to Tom. I'm glad I get to be a part of a people who will do that. And that's the most recent one, but there's been all sorts of things like that. We got to start just a little bit of a relationship with an organization called the Sunnycrest Youth and Horse Ranch this spring when we did our serving surge, where over 200 of you served in one day and just investing back into our communities. And some of those serving opportunities have turned into kind of ongoing relationships. And occasionally those organizations or groups of people will present a need. And a lot of times what happens is it just gets met. Like there's a bunch of Journey people who just rally and meet that need. And my favorite part is it's completely almost organic. It just kind of happens. People start talking about it and somebody finds out and they send a need to 6 people and there are 12 people and those people meet this need. And it's an amazing thing that there are a group of boys living at a ranch getting a chance at life and getting a chance at a new trajectory and getting a chance to live someplace where they're loved and they're valued and they're invested in. And when you're generous on the fly in opportunities like that, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And it's really, really cool to see it happen and to get to be a part of that on some level. Over 40 of you served at the Caledonia Christmas Parade a weekend or so ago, and we just got to have an honest conversation about that, okay? That weather was awful. It was terrible. And it rained sideways some of the time, and it was cold. And when it's cold and raining sideways and the wind blowing kind of down Main Street in Caledonia, it was awful. And it was just this great reminder that, man, sometimes serving, I like to serve when it's 75 and sunny. I mean, that's my thing, right? But sometimes serving is not convenient. It's not convenient times, and it's nothing. And I looked around at one moment that night, just kind of being down there, and I looked around on both sides of the streets and up and down. There's these Journey people serving and doing things and just being present. And there was the abundance of laughter and joy just struck me. Like in less than ideal circumstances, when every one of us, as push came to shove, would have said, put me at home in a warm something in front of a warm fire, and it's right? And yet you just did it when it's not convenient, and it makes a difference. It makes a difference to people who are trying to run that and facilitate that and those kind of things. And I'm just really, really grateful. A lot of you helped people have dinner for Thanksgiving who weren't going to have dinner if you didn't step up and provide a Thanksgiving meal for them. And thank you that you meet people's tangible need, which is where Jesus is meeting people. It's in the middle of their tangible need. And then kind of in things that happen inside of this wall. I don't know if you know this or not. We try and share it in lots of different forums and venues and social media and email and all those things. But just in the last month or so, we've had a chance to baptize some students. We've had a chance to baptize some kids and some adults. And just in the last month or so, just kids, 4 kids in our Journey Kids ministry, 4 kids have given their life to Jesus and began a relationship with him just in the last month or so. And you should applaud that. You should absolutely celebrate that, right? There's nothing better than that. And then there's 10 others who are having conversations right now about baptism and things like that. And it's just a cool deal. That's where it's fun that to people who love kids back there, they get to partner. We get to partner with families. Don't do childcare. We invest life. And so it's a lot of fun to get to see that happen. And then to hear people asking questions and telling stories about how they're getting creative and doing unique things and trying to think intentionally through who they're inviting for Christmas and how they're doing it, because it's just a good opportunity. It's just handed to us, and I love it. And honestly, if you want to have like the top of the top of the top Christmas experience, partner with Jesus to make a difference in somebody's life. Nothing's going to make Christmas better. And so it's so fun to hear people so passionately in love with the people they're around that they're getting creative and trying to figure out the best way to have conversations about Jesus and invite them to things like Christmas. And so it's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of good. And I just want to celebrate you and say thank you to you for being you and just leaning in and saying, man, what Jesus is doing, let's just do that. So kudos to you, pats on the back to you, cheers to you. I love that we get to follow Jesus and that kind of stuff together. And while we're baptizing and celebrating and all that, I just wanted to take a minute and say thanks for it. I love it. It's part of what makes a difference in how Jesus moves his kingdom forward on the earth. Now, as we jump into kind of this week two, I want to show you a picture of a guy who lived a long time ago. And my first question is, how many of you gals want your guy to grow that stash? Okay. I heard a woo. Amanda, is that you? You want Jeff to? No? Okay, just checking. Just wanting to make sure. How many of you are married or dating to a guy that you wish could, but you just know they couldn't even if they tried? Never mind. Different story for a different day. That is the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who in 1914, he didn't know it, but his assassination actually was the final straw in launching World War I. His assassination kind of just was the last little bit and spark in the fire of political and international tension, and it launched something that would change the course of the world. Look at the things that happened next, right following his assassination. So Austria, he was from Austria, they declared war on Serbia. They're like, you can't be messing around with us like that. We've been having conversations, and now we're going to war. Well, Russia's like, listen, you can't just be attacking our brothers in Serbia. We're going to war with you, Austria. And Germany says, hey, we're not standing for that. We're going to, Russia, we're going to war with you. And France, they get in the game. They're like, listen, we kind of got some protection with Russia. We're not settling for that. And so they enter the war against Germany. Germany's like, oh, yeah? Well, we'll go after your small little neighbor Belgium over there and create problems for you. Britain probably felt left out of the whole thing. I don't really know. But then they go to war with Germany. Okay, then it's all in, right? It's all systems go. That war lasted about 4 years. And 16 million people lost their life. 9 million of them soldiers, but 7 million of them civilians not directly engaged in the battle. And one of the most fascinating things that developed in World War I was this thing called trench warfare, where armies would dig trenches in the ground where they thought they could get the greatest foothold, and they thought, if we can dig this trench here, it gives us the best chance to fight from this trench and advance forward, to take new ground, to move forward. And so they dug in, they would dig in deep, and they would battle from there, and it felt like they had a little bit of defense being down in the trench, but it also felt like that's where, man, we can kind of lob some bombs from here, we can shoot our artillery from here, like this is the thing. The tragedy was that the trench warfare, it didn't actually move the line very often. It actually became this kind of the stalling point. In fact, often, it wasn't until later that armies knew how close the enemy's trench actually was, because they couldn't actually get up out of the trench and get into no man's land. Except from the first Christmas of that war. Pastor Joel showed a video last week about this thing that's now called the Christmas truce. And what happened is there was an attempt to actually have an edict that said there is a Christmas truce, and that edict didn't quite make it through, but on multiple fronts, soldiers on Christmas Eve would literally get up out of this trench, and they would have some expression of peace, and they would enter this no man's land, and then gradually some of the enemy would come out, and they would actually just say, hey, look, for a day, it's a truce. They would play games together. They would share some food and make some exchanges. A lot of them reported of singing together in their own languages, singing Christmas songs. And it was remarkably impactful. There were news people who started to hear about it and wanted to tell the story, and commanders of armies were trying to suppress the story because if word got out that their men in the battle were being friendly with the enemy, that was a problem for the commander, right? So they tried to suppress this story, but then letters went home, and you can read articles and books with these letters that went home to parents talking about this Christmas truce and the experience that really was, and this gift that really was. At least in one location, that truce lasted for up to 30 days. But eventually, men are ordered, compelled back into the trench. On some occasions, once they're back in the trench, they can't fight anymore. They've met the person they've been told is their enemy, right? They've met the adversary. They've put a face with a name. They've heard a voice. They've had a conversation. They've shared something, and they literally can't fight. They literally have to send some troops to other fronts and bring other troops into the front line. Again, people who haven't met the men in the other trench just across this no man's land, this field. There's this truce, but then it's back to this trench. And here's the thing about trench warfare in World War I is that it didn't amount to much progress. And yet, if we're just the slightest bit reflective about it, we start to realize, you know what, we're still really good at trench warfare. We're still really good at digging trenches and forming our side and forming our opinion and forming our stand and declaring what it is we think we have some kind of right to, and we get down in there and it feels like it's a little bit defended and a little bit protected, and so we can lob our words and we can lob our accusations and we can lob more divisiveness and more hate into the equation, and we feel kind of safe down there, but we can also still play some offense. And we're really good at this kind of still trench warfare thing relationally and collectively in communities, as nations, but also as individuals. It gets really easy to kind of just hunker down in there. And there's this thing about living in the trench that we don't often think about once we're in it, because it becomes what's normal, but the trench is actually it's kind of stifling. It's not real big, and you bump into a lot of people. It's hard to get really comfortable. It actually starts limiting life and mobility. And in the trench, you can't really see everything as it's designed to be. And yet we know, right, the easy thing to do is kind of dig that trench. It's more than draw a line in the sand. It's hunker down, it's bury in, and there's some things that get us there. And we end up in the trench, honestly, for some very understandable reasons. See, we could make a passing glance and say, just get out of the trench, quit being mean to people, quit. But we get in the trench for some very understandable reasons. A lot of times we dig trenches in our life for the simple reality that out in life we get hurt. We get dinged, we get disappointed, we experience pain at the hands of other people or other groups or organizations or even the church. And for some of us, it's remarkably, it's extreme and it's devastating. It's abuse, emotional or sexual or physical or mental abuse, or it's abandonment. Somebody just walked out and turned their back. It's betrayal. The person we thought loved us was not really who they said they were, or they lived in a way that was completely different, or they made a series of decisions that was betrayal. Or we've been overlooked or pushed aside or cast out, and it leaves this lasting wound and mark in us, and something in us, when we receive it, something in us breaks. And understandably, we begin to dig a trench and say, wait, I got to get someplace that's safe, and I'm going to hunker down in here. But when I'm in this trench, I can also kind of in my bitterness and in my anger, while I'm out of hiding, I can also start saying things. I can also start lobbing my attack back. Hoping maybe just to get even just a little bit of revenge, hoping maybe just a little bit even to even the score, and somehow hope that would make me feel better. That would be somehow healing and therapeutic. Some of us are in the trench for a lot more simple reasons. It's actually, quite honestly, sometimes it's really petty. It's a misunderstanding. It's we misread a look across a room. It's a stray word that nobody really meant. Or it's really somebody in a point of weakness, somebody we even love and know. And they just in a moment of weakness, things aren't going well, and they say something or do something you know they don't really mean, but you still absorb it deeply, and we allow something to break, and we take it and we get in the trench, and we build these barriers, and we cut people off, and so I'm going to be in my trench. And I'm going to be a little defended in here, a little protected. And here's the challenge. What happens is we get in the trench, and we think we're actually protecting our life, while all the while we're actually watching it pass by. It feels like it must be somehow protected and safe, but in reality we're missing it. Like it's moving. And it's moving without us. And Jesus enters that fray. He enters into that bitterness and that hurt and that pain, the betrayal, the abuse. He says, oh, I know. It's part of why I've come. It's part of why you celebrate my birth. It's part of why I've come. And what I really want to do is I want to show you just a completely different thing that I want to give to you and invite you into. We start to see it even in probably the most famous part of the Christmas story from the scriptures. It's in the book of Luke, which is written by a guy named Luke, and he's writing it to a friend to try and say, hey, look, here are the events. You got to see Jesus for who he is. Here are the events surrounding Jesus' birth and his life. Luke chapter 2, verse 11, this is the way it starts. He says, today, these are the angels kind of talking to some shepherds. Today in the town of David, a Savior, a rescuer, a deliverer has been born to you, and he's the Messiah, and he's going to be the Lord and the leader. He says, this is going to be a sign to you. You're going to find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger. And I love this. Look what they say next. And then suddenly this great company of heavenly hosts appear with this angel, and they're all praising God, and they're literally declaring this message. Glory to God, perfection and praise to God in the highest heaven. And on earth, and on this earth, on this broken, pain-riddled, disappointment-filled world, on this earth, peace. Peace. In the middle of this brokenness and agony and loss and disappointment, peace. Peace to men and women on whom my favor rests on. Peace to those of you who would choose to follow me and let me establish my peace in you. Peace to you. See, Jesus offers a radically different way of doing things. See, what the world says, listen, look, it's everywhere, right? What the pattern of world and life is, say, look, dig the trench, man. You got hurt, dig the trench. You don't deserve that. You don't have to put up with that. You don't have to deal with that. That's not right. You're right. Dig the trench. Get in there. Protect yourself. And while you're in there, man, throw your opinion and throw the accusations and lob it back. They've got what's coming to them. And hey, if you want to be a little more polished, then just get in the trench and don't lob anything back. Just think all those things. Just maybe share them with a few people you kind of trust. Just like, oh man, look, dig the trench. You can never heal from that. You could never be made whole. You could never have that brokenness rebuilt. Man, dig the trench. Get in, man. You deserve to be in that trench. That trench is your right. And Jesus comes and he says, oh, look, I know on the earth your pain is real, and I know on the earth that like the bones and ligaments and tendons of your soul can literally be pulled apart and broken at the hands and at the words and at the actions and the looks of other people. But I want you to know, I'm coming to, in the middle of that, I'm coming to give you peace. I'm coming to take all of those fragmented and broken things in your soul, and I'm going to put them back together in one. I'm going to set them at one again. Just like the doctor would set the bone that's broken, I'm going to put it back together again. She says, that's what I want to give you. I want to give you my peace. And he says it because here's the understanding of Jesus when he establishes peace in that, is that peace is the condition of healing. Peace is the fertile ground of healing. It's not just the result of healing. Jesus gives us his peace before healing. He doesn't try and heal us and hold his peace out there somewhere. He's like, I am peace. I'm going to be peace in you, and because I'm peace in you, well, then I can help you heal. It's not just the result of healing. It's the actual condition in which we heal. And that's completely different, right, than the way the lines are drawn right now. That's completely, like, it doesn't take any time at all to understand how divisive our world is right now, how deep the trenches are, how quick the accusations are, right? And everybody's claiming to be right, and everybody's claiming to be hurt by the other side, and right? And Jesus says, I want to give you a way out. See, over here, what you're being encouraged to do is hold the bitterness. Like, just hold it. Get in that trench, hunker it down, and you got a right to that bitterness. But you've heard this phrase probably before, right? That bitterness is like drinking the poison, and you expect the person who hurt you to die. Bitterness is like, I'll consume all of that poison, all of that junk, and I'll expect that somebody else who hurt me would be the person who would die. Jesus says, man, look, the trench is stifling your life. The trench, I know that pain. I feel that pain. I see your pain. But can I offer you a way out? Could I give you peace and offer you a way out? And there's a couple of things that Jesus models for us and that he invites us into. And I want to tell you straight up from the beginning, they're not rocket science. And they're not pain-free. The way to healing is rarely pain-free. You ever had a major surgery and had to try and recover from that thing? You know that it's painful to recover from what's there to fix you, right? It's just true about living with peace, but still on an earth that's got brokenness in it. Part of what Jesus invites us into is just to forgive others. It's just to forgive others. It's just kind of say, look, Jesus fully understands and fully sees and doesn't diminish the pain that we experience. And he says, okay, I completely understand that. But, I want to offer you a way forward. I want to offer you the ability to get up out of the trench and walk in flat and open ground where you can see horizons and you can carry dreams and you can experience my healing. Look, the trench might feel like a place of protection, but it's never a place of healing. She says, man, come on, just let me help you up out. Just choose to forgive others. A guy named Paul wrote this to a group of people. It's a letter called Ephesians now, and he said this, be kind and compassionate to one another. That sounds good. But forgive each other, just like Christ forgave you. Freely and before you wanted it. But with pain. Forgiveness didn't come easily for Jesus. He had to set his face like flint to go pay for it. He sweat drops of blood looking for a different way. Forgiveness wasn't just some, right? Compelling love in the heart somehow saw through the pain. And forgiveness doesn't just remedy all the wounds that have been done. Forgiveness doesn't somehow make it so that abuse didn't happen or that betrayal didn't happen or the disappointment didn't happen. Those are still real things. Forgiveness puts us in that place where we sit in that peace, which can be the condition of healing. Jesus went a little further and he said, look, if you can't quite handle it on a nudge, let me give it to you on a shove. And this is what he said in Matthew chapter 6. He said, if you forgive men and women when they sin against you, well, your heavenly Father, he's going to forgive you too. But if you won't, if you just will not forgive people, then maybe you won't know forgiveness either. Now here's the thing. It feels a little bit like that's Jesus saying, look, forgive or you miss out on heaven, bud. But what Jesus is really saying is this, hey, if you've really experienced my forgiveness and grace, if you've really absorbed it, if you really just kind of take a glimpse at it and see it for what it is, you'll forgive other people. You'll forgive other people. It won't be easy, but you'll forgive other people. And if you just refuse to forgive other people, then maybe you haven't really received my forgiveness. Maybe you haven't absorbed it and seen it for the depth and the love that it comes with. See, the strongest antidote to anger in the heart is not trying harder. The strongest antidote to anger in the heart is to constantly receive grace. It's to constantly say, oh man, I'm accepted by God. I'm chosen by him. He loves me. He freely forgives me. I would never want to have to earn my forgiveness. He freely gives that to me. And man, there's a healthy thing in daily almost receiving grace, just being reminded of it. The strongest antidote to anger in the heart isn't buck it up, isn't get tougher, isn't try harder, isn't push through. It's to constantly receive grace. That's what Jesus is getting at. He's like, look, let me just remind you, man, I'm giving you forgiveness, gave you forgiveness, will give you forgiveness, do forgive you. Just absorb it. Absorb it. And it'll make it a little easier for you to choose to forgive other people. It'll make it a little easier. Then Jesus, he even pushes this a little bit further, right? He knows this is such a big deal. He talks about forgiveness a lot, right? And he says it this way, another spot in Matthew chapter 5, starting verse 21, he says, you've heard it said that our ancestors were told, don't murder. We like that. Yeah, I mean, that feels like a good one, right? Keep that one in, Jesus. That's good. You must not commit murder. And if you commit murder, you're subject to judgment. We even kind of like that one, right? I mean, you should probably do your time. Okay, that feels good, right? But I say to you, oh, man, can we have a moment of honesty? Isn't there somebody, you just kind of wish you could wipe that out of your Bible? I say to you that if you're even angry with someone, man, if you're even angry with somebody, there's a price, there's a spiritual price to be paid. There's a gap we miss with Jesus. There's part of him we miss out on and we don't start to see. If you even get angry with someone. Goes on to say this, Jesus keeps going, he plays it out a little bit. He says, if you even call somebody an idiot or a fool, you're in danger of being brought before the court. And if you curse someone, if you curse their life, you're in danger of the fires of hell. You're literally flirting with being separated from Jesus and just saying, Jesus, your way isn't the way. Here's what Jesus is really getting at. Hey, I understand that your pain is real, and I understand sometimes you get knocked around, and sometimes it's extreme, and sometimes it's petty, but I understand there's pain on this earth. That's why I want to give you peace. And I know that you don't like murder, but could we also just be really careful not to murder with the tongue? Can we also be really careful not to murder with our mind and all the thoughts that we have and things that we wish we could say, but we maybe won't say, or we say and we polish them up and clean them up a little bit, all as part of being in our trench and lobbing our offensive. Right? She's like, let's just be real careful. Let's just be real careful because murder isn't just about somebody's physical life, it's about somebody's soul. So the same forgiveness you want to breathe life into your spirit and soul, let's try and lean towards that. And see, sometimes we really do. We get bent on some really petty things. There's an accident or an oversight or a stray word or a misunderstanding or somebody's trying to help us and they actually kind of hurt us unintentionally or hurt something we have or think we have or think we own. And you ever do this? You ever say, look, I just need some space or I'm going to say something I might regret. And you just, come on, let's just admit it. How many of you ever said it? The rest of you are a bunch of liars. Most of your spouses have told me about you. No. Yeah, right? I've said it. I just can't go there. I'm going to say something I regret. And here's the really Jesus challenging thing in me lately, just trying to follow Jesus in this, because look, I want to live in all the peace he's giving me. Okay? I want to live in all of that. And here's what I wonder. If instead of always saying, man, of always staying away so we don't say something we might regret, I wonder if we could stay close so we could say, I forgive you. I wonder if instead of the first move, I'm going to get away so I don't say something I might regret, I wonder if the first move is I'm going to stay close so I will say I forgive you. Oh man, I'm so glad Jesus has never looked at me and said, John, I need a break from you or I will say something I don't. Right? I mean, aren't you glad? And if you think he's done it, he hasn't. He's always looking your way. And she's like, hey, John, let's just live like that. Let's live like that. Let's get up out of that trench. Even for the misunderstanding that stings deep, even for the oversight that stings deep, even for the careless word that stings deep, even for the thing that wasn't done that you think should have been done that stings deep. Man, come on, John. Stay close so you can say, I forgive you. I want you to live in the fullness of my peace. I want you to be living in everything I'm giving you. It's okay. See, look, the pain is real. The trench is real. The pain it's understandable. Jesus is loaded with compassion. Every invitation to forgiveness of Jesus, to be a forgiver, is loaded with compassion. It's like, I know. I'm not diminishing what you've had. I'm inviting you to a healing place. I'm inviting you to a healing place. Now, Jesus also comes at this from a slightly different angle because at the end of the day, Jesus is about reconciliation, right? So he also comes from a little bit of a different place. Look at this one in Matthew chapter 5. I like this. It was a little pushing for us, right? Therefore, if you're like doing the church thing or the Jesus following thing or something, and if you're offering your gift at the altar, which might be your song, it might be your response to something, it might be your giving, whatever it is. And if you're offering your gift at the altar, and there you remember that your brother or sister has something against you because you've been the one in the wrong, even accidentally, even if you didn't mean it, even if you're not honestly sure what you did, but you know somehow unintentionally you caused pain, why don't you just leave your song right there? Why don't you just leave your hand raising and your hand clapping right there? Just leave it there. And then look what he says to do. He says, now you can leave it there, and then go and make that thing right. Go and say, look, I just want to ask your forgiveness. I want to ask your forgiveness. And then come back and say, offer that song, offer that gift, offer that. Jesus is like, man, bitterness on either side. The wronging of one another on either side, intentional, accidental, that doesn't, if the relationship is fractured in the slightest, Jesus' number one aim is to make it whole. Whether it happened unintentionally, intentionally, Jesus like, okay, I want to make it whole. I want to make it whole. So just leave it there. Quit doing your super churchy thing and go do a Jesus thing. Go to him and say, look, I might not even be sure what I did, but I know somehow I've caused you pain, and I'm so sorry. Can I tell you quite honestly, both of these moves, forgive others and then to go ask others for forgiveness, which is sometimes what we just got to do, to go ask others for forgiveness. And both of those moves are hard. Forgive others and go ask others for forgiveness, they're both hard. Can I tell you the second one sometimes is harder? I recently had to do it, just kind of in processing things in my own life. I'm like, oh my word. Like I have dug my trench on this thing. And I'm actually the one contributing to the wrong. And I knew I needed to do it. And so I told two people that I needed to do it because I knew if I didn't, I would just never do it. Does it work that way for you ever? I told two people, and then it got to the point, it's like, I need to do this today. Like, this got to happen today. And so I set it up, and I drive to meet with this person. It happened to be a group of people, and I met with this person primarily. And can I tell you, even when I got there, I knew it was right. I knew it'd be good for my own soul. I knew it'd be good for the potential of the relationship. And I literally sat in the car and I just shook for like 5 minutes. For one, come on, let's just call it what it is. None of us really like admitting when we're wrong. And two, if you have any compassion about it, it's hard to admit you've caused pain. Even unintentionally. It's hard to admit you've caused pain. But Jesus says, look, this is part of living in my peace. I'm giving you peace on the earth. I'm not setting the earth at peace and fixing all the problems. I'm giving people, man. People are my prized possession. I'm giving people peace. And eventually I'm going to help you take that peace to the world. I'm giving you peace. And in that peace, man, you can choose to forgive. See, here's the thing. Living in trenches is so common that more of us are doing it than we even realize. Living in trenches with bitterness and anger and unresolved stuff, it's so common that more of us are doing it than we realize. And in fact, most of the world is encouraging us to do it. You just stay there, man. You got a right to that anger. Man, I'd be angry too. Oh, you got a right to say whatever it is you want about them. You got a right to you deserve that, right? You can do whatever that is. You just sit there and you hold it in and maybe you be polite so you won't say anything, but man, you throw out what you want to throw out and you lob the bomb. But here's the deal, the trench is it's just stifling, it's narrow, there's not a lot of room to move, and life kind of gets boxed in, and life gets tucked in and gets squeezed, and you start bumping into the people that you think are on your side, and unintentionally they start becoming the collateral damage of your anger and of our hurt and of our woundedness that shows up like bitterness. He says, oh, man, Jesus says, come on. I understand why you're in it, but I so want to help you out. I so want to help you out. You don't have to live in that trench. You don't have to live there. And here's the thing about Jesus. He's so compassionate, He's not even calling to you from out of the trench. He's not even like out in some field somewhere. He's actually in there. He's actually right up in the trench with you because that's how he brings comfort. It's with his presence. And he's saying, I know. I so wish this hadn't happened to you. I so wish this wasn't the hurt you had to live with. This isn't how I designed life. In fact, I didn't even design your life to carry bitterness. I know. But can we kind of climb up out of this trench together? I'm here and I'm your peace. Could we climb up out of this trench together? Could we just choose to forgive? Maybe go seek some forgiveness. So let me just leave you with a few questions that might help us get out of the trench today. Might help you get out of the trench. And maybe you've been in it so long you barely even recognize you live there. But here's the first question. Who today do you need to choose to forgive? Not feel like forgiving, choose to forgive. Who do you need to choose to forgive? Can I just be vulnerable with you for a minute? Can I tell you what this is for me? Right now, I just on Friday morning, I'm kind of working through some things, and one of the things I was working through is there bitterness and junk in my own life? Where kind of I at on this? And sometimes this is the hardest one, but you know who I really needed? One of the people I really needed to forgive on Friday morning was me. Man, we're really good at throwing our own junk on ourselves again. We're really good at condemning ourselves and judging ourselves and misguiding. We're really good at that. Shaming ourselves, guilting ourselves, believing things about us that are so far opposite of what Jesus has already said and established as true. And maybe today, maybe that's you. I need to forgive me. I've made some decisions I wish I wouldn't have made. I've said some things to myself I wish I've said. I believe some things about myself I wish I wouldn't have believed. I've held some things against myself that, dear God, I'm trusting and believing that Jesus is now holding against me. So why am I? Why am I? Maybe it's a mom, maybe it's a dad. Maybe it's a spouse, a former spouse, a kid, a sibling. Maybe it's a boss, a former boss. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a former friend. Maybe it's an organization. Maybe it's the church. You say, man, the pain is real, but I'm tired of living underneath it. I'm tired of living cramped in this trench. I'm going to choose to forgive. And with that, the partner question is, what anger do you need to let go of today? But you could replace a lot of things with anger. What anger, what shame, what guilt, what disappointment, what hurt, what grief, what loss, what sense of shame or insecurity or doubt that came as a result of that? What do I just need to let go of today? See, because Jesus would love to not just get you out of it, but to heal you from what got you in there. But maybe the third question is yours today. Who do you need to go ask for forgiveness from? Or some of you, maybe before you even get out those doors today, you need to have a face-to-face contact with somebody, or you need to call somebody and say, I'm coming to your house. Or we're just, again, accidental or intentional. It doesn't even matter. We're people who love Jesus, and because we love Jesus, we love people. And so when we cause pain, for whatever reason, wouldn't we want to do our best to live at peace with them? Say, yeah, okay. Who would that be? I want to show you a prayer. I'm going to put it on the screen. It's a prayer we've given away probably hundreds of times here. I've prayed this prayer thousands of times in my life. It actually shaped by a guy named Neil Anderson. And it's just it's on our website. We've had it on our website for years. But it's really a simple prayer. Just say, Jesus, today I'm choosing. I will never feel like forgiving, so I'm choosing it. I'm choosing forgiveness. And it's just to own what the hurt is. It's to name the person we're offending. It's to identify the things in us that have really been hurt and ask for Jesus' healing. And then it's got forward momentum when you start praying for that person to be blessed. Maybe even more blessed than you are. That's when you know that forgiveness thing's getting some momentum. You just keep praying that. You just keep praying it over and over and over again. I've prayed that. I prayed that prayer thousands of times. We talk about this almost every year. I'll tell you this again. I've prayed that prayer over some of the same people and the same hurts hundreds of times. You say, wait, shouldn't it be one and done or whatever? I wish. And I don't understand everything about the world we live, but I know we got a real enemy who loves to stir the pot over and over and over and over and over again. So let's just not give it room. Let's choose it. Let's choose it. And maybe today, and maybe this week, maybe the rest of your life, this will just be a prayer that's a gift. Will you just bow your heads and close your eyes for just a minute? I think for a lot of us, Jesus today would just love to say, hey, I want out of that trench. Come on, I want to get you out of there. I want to walk out of this thing with you. I just want to climb this little ladder and put you on a new horizon. I want to put you someplace where your feet set firmly on the ground, where you actually get to taste my goodness in the land of the living. And you don't have to live in a trench all hunkered down and trying to defend and holding out for the goodness of heaven. I want you to experience some good now. I want your soul to breathe. I want you to just be in a place where healing can come. So maybe even right now, you just sense Jesus and all his love and all his tenderness, just inviting you, choose to forgive. In the strength and the compassion and the fullness of Jesus, choose to forgive. I'm 100% convinced we don't have to walk out the way we came in. We don't have to leave with the same bitterness we came with. We don't have to live in the trench that started to somehow feel like home even though we didn't want it to. Jesus, so for abuse, and betrayal, and abandonment, for the people who have slandered us and lied about us, for people who have condemned us, left us where we were and lost hope in us, for people who overlooked us, for organizations and systems that slighted us, for people who literally invaded with only the intent of causing pain in our life. For people who tried their best to love us and just honestly didn't know how to love us well. We choose to forgive. In your strength, we choose to forgive. And we would pray that even in this moment, we would literally begin to sense your healing. We literally begin to sense new waves of not just your compassion, but your healing, your refreshing, the beginning work of being made new in you and them. And we're grateful for it. We trust you in it. It's not necessarily the easiest thing. We trust you. Thank you for how you forgive us. Thank you for your grace, your grace, your grace to us. Thank you for in every single solitary moment of our life when we didn't deserve it, which is every moment, you just keep heaping on your grace. We receive that. We literally just allow that living truth to shape and encourage and empower us. Thanks for inviting us into things for our good. For your fame and for our good, even when it's good. We trust you and we follow you. And Jesus, we pray these things because we're walking the ways that we're just trying to walk in your character and your way. So we pray them in your name. Amen. Amen, everybody.